All right, all praise, glory, and honors most certainly due to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to say peace to you in the name of the Son, Yehoshua HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. This is always a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to bring a message contained in His Word. And I never counted a light thing. With that, brothers and sisters, I want to go ahead and get into today's message. And today's message, I'm dealing with Bible basics. And then this one is dealing with marriage and basically who you can marry, okay? And who you could basically, well, let me say this, who you can be in relations with sexually, because there are prohibitions that we find in the book of Leviticus in the 18th chapter. So we're going to look at that chapter in particular and just break that down. So this was shown unto the children of Israel specifically. So we'll pick it up at Leviticus 18 and verse 6. Now it says, none of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. So now what commonly is called incest, okay, was prohibited. Okay. And that's what we would call into in English, incest, to the close relations. Okay. So verse 7 says, the nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Okay, so um, obviously one is not supposed to lay with his mother. Um, and even a curse is stipulated in Deuteronomy 27 and 23 upon somebody that does that. It says, cursed be he that lieth with his mother-in-law, and all the people shall say, Amen. Okay, so the nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. So here's literal mother, like from a woman. And then the other is a mother-in-law. Um, Verse 8 says, the nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. So you're not to lay with your father's wife. Okay. And you see examples of that in the text. Let's go to Genesis, the 49th division, chapter, excuse me, Genesis 49. And here, when Jacob is blessing, he's given this prophetic prophecy and blessing upon his 12 sons. He starts with the firstborn, who is Reuben or Reuben. And it says in verse 3, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. So it's his firstborn, but then he says something else. He says, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. Um, Reuben laid with his father's concubine. Okay, so that was in, I believe it was Genesis. I have to find it, but I should read it. Give me 1 second to find it. But that's what he did. Genesis 35 and 22. It says, and it came to pass when Israel, that's who Jacob is, his name was changed to Israel, dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob or Jacob were 12. Okay, so now, and he was, and ultimately he said, thou shalt not excel. And the inheritance, or the birthright rather, was lost because of this. This is on that firstborn son. 1 Corinthians 5 and verse 1. It said, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So he lost his birthright. Okay, and that had an impact on his lineage. And matter of fact, just going to the New Testament, you see the similar thing, or the same thing actually, going on here in First Corinthians. This is going on in the congregation at Corinth, and it's called fornication or porneia, and Paul had to address it because fornication was rampant, just like it could be today in congregations. You have to deal with sin. Okay, you have to address it. 1 Corinthians 5 and 1 says, it is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. So the church, or the assembly at Corinth, they were doing above and beyond as far as sin goes. Um, even so much to where you see this, where a man was laying with his father's wife. Let's go back to Leviticus, the 18th chapter, Leviticus 18, and we will pick it up at Leviticus 18 and verse 9. So it says, the nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness shalt thou not uncover. So what we would call in the West, a half sister, if you will, um, that's not somebody you should lay with. And you see examples of that. 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter. You see this, which caused a bunch of discord. Well, really, the root of the discord was um ultimately this happened. It was prophesied that that there was going to be uh conflict in this household because of what David did with Bathsheba and Uriah. But 2 Samuel 13, and I'll pick it up at verse 11. Some of his children, this says in 11, it says, and when she had brought them unto him to eat. So Amnon, basically, he's dealing in deception. He acts like he's sick. He wants he wants to lay with his half sister, which he should not do. And so she brought him some food, and in that ruse, he took advantage. It said, when she had brought them unto him to eat, he took hold of her and said unto him, her, come lie with me, my sister. And she answered him, nay, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not thou this folly. Okay, so she called it folly. And then it says, and I, whither shall I cause my shame to go? And as for thee, thou shalt be as one of the fools in Israel. Now, therefore, I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. Now, whether or not she was saying that just to get out of the room, I don't know. But because he's not thinking in his right mind. And it says, howbeit he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than her, forced her and lay with her. So this was assault. And this is what, and Absalom came, that was his sister, because they, they're siblings, but they have different mothers. So her and Absalom had the same mother. So Absalom waited for some time and took vengeance and killed Amnon, and then left, and then he laid with his father's concubines. Okay, which you should not do. He laid, and you read, he laid with 10 of his father's concubines before all of Israel. But now let's pick it back up in Leviticus, the 18th chapter. Leviticus, the 18th chapter, and we're in verse 10. It says, the nakedness of thy son's daughter or thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness. So you're not supposed to deal with your grandchildren in that way. Okay. Verse 11, the nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister, and thou shalt not uncover, it says, her nakedness. Okay. So you're not supposed to deal with your sister, the nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or the daughter of thy mother. And then it says the nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter. Okay. So now you're not supposed to deal with your sister, whether if you had the same father and mother or not. Okay. So this is verse 9. I'm gonna read that one again. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness shalt thou not uncover. Verse 11 says, the nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister. Okay. Thou shalt not, that would be half sister. Thou shalt not uncover. Now, this is something that actually, pick it up in Genesis 20 and pick it up in Genesis 20 and verse 12, when in the issue of Abraham and Abimelech, Abraham and Sarah, they were siblings, but not the same mother. Verse 12 says, and yet indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. So that's Abraham telling Abimelech, because Abimelech, man, why'd you, because he took her and had intentions, not knowing that she was married. Okay, but now let's pick it up at verse 12. Leviticus 18 and 12. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's sister. She is thy father's near kinswoman. So who is that? That's an aunt. And you see an example of that. Let's go to Exodus, the 6th chapter. Exodus, the 6th chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse 20. It says, and Amram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron and Moshe, or Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. Okay, so now that you see the lineage here, well, man took his father's sister, his aunt, to wife, and bear Moses and Aaron. Okay, let's go back. Leviticus 18. So all this is being laid out of who you can't be with or should not be with according to Torah now. Leviticus 18, and we'll pick it up at verse 13. It says, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy mother's sister, for she is thy mother's near kinswoman. Okay, so same thing. That would be like your aunt. It says, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's brother. Thou shalt not approach to his wife. She is thine aunt. So now you wouldn't deal with your father's brother's wife. Again, aunt. She is thine aunt. It says, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. So you're not supposed to deal with your daughter-in-law, which you see an example of that. Genesis, the 38th chapter, Genesis 38 and verse 18. So now it says, now just to give you some context here, this is when Tamar, she was married to one of the sons of Judah, okay, and he was wicked and the Lord killed him. So now Judah tells his other son, Onan, to go into her, right, make her his wife, basically fulfilling the levirate law or the duty of brothers, which I dealt with just some time ago. And when he knew the seed wouldn't be his, or the child wouldn't be his, he let the seed spill on the ground, and therefore didn't fulfill it, and the Lord killed him. So now now think about it. Judah has two children that died that was in somewhat affiliated with, not somewhat affiliated with Tamar. So now he got another son. So he's supposed to fulfill it, right? She's in her widowhood, and so she's not given to him. So she deceives him. She wears the apparel of a harlot, right? And they would be veiled in anonymity, right? And so he didn't know who it was. He lay with her, and notice what it said here. It says, and he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet and thy bracelets and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. Okay, so now that's how you got Zara and Perez. Okay, but now that was through Judah. He didn't know he was laying with his daughter-in-law. He thought he was laying with a common prostitute. Going back to Leviticus. So you're not supposed to lay with your daughter-in-law. Okay, not supposed to lay with your aunt. Not supposed to lay with your mother. Not supposed to lay with your sister, what we call half sister. Leviticus, the 18th chapter. And now we're in verse 14. It says, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's brother. Thou shalt not approach to his wife. She is thine aunt. I read that. Verse 15, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. I read that. Verse 16, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife. It is thy brother's nakedness. So you're not supposed to lay with your brother's wife. You'll see movies and so forth, and that's a line in the movie, or a aspect of the plot in the movie or a TV series or something like that, and brothers fighting over a woman. That's not what you're supposed to do. Now, you do have a liberate law after one of the brothers dies and he doesn't have seed, and that the surviving brother will raise up seed in his brother's name. But that's not what should be done. Other than that, let's go to Matthew, the 14th chapter, and you see an example of this. Matthew, the 14th chapter. As a matter of fact, this is why John the Baptist was beheaded. This is Matthew, the 14th chapter and verse 34. Matthew 14 and verse 30. 1 second. Actually, it's 3. I'll pick it up at verse 1. Matthew 14 and 1. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus and said unto his servants, this is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on Yochanan or John and bound him and put him in prison for Herod's sake, for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, it is not lawful for thee to have her. He, speaking truth to power, he told his one, it's not lawful for you to take your brother's wife. Lawful according to what? According to Torah, it's not. According to Torah, it's not lawful. And that's why he was put in prison, and eventually he was beheaded. Let's go back. Deuteronomy, Leviticus, the 18th chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse Leviticus 18 and verse 17 says, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, neither shalt thou take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness, for they are her near kinsmen. It is wickedness. So you're not supposed to take a woman's daughter, okay, that you've made your wife, okay, or thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. Okay, not supposed to do that. Just not supposed to do that. It says, let's go to Deuteronomy 27. Deuteronomy 27 and verse 20. Let's see. 23 says, cursed be he that lieth with his mother-in-law, and all the people shall say, amen. Okay, so like if you were married to a woman, you wouldn't then lay with the woman's mother. Okay, that's not what you would do. Let's see here. Let's see the punishment of this. Leviticus 20 and 14. And if a man take a wife and her mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burnt with fire, both he and they, that there be no wickedness among you. Okay, so that's speaking in a sense of it doesn't seem, if you read this, and it doesn't seem contextually, it doesn't even seem as if it's like something that's like somebody, maybe one of the parties doesn't even know about it. It seems like they all willing participants in something, if you understand what I'm saying. Just because of how that's written. Because if it's different if one didn't know what was going on, you understand? If it can't be that they didn't know what's going on, because it said both he and they. All right. Let's go back. Leviticus 18. And so this is serious. But it provides order. The Lord is about order. Leviticus 18 and verse 18 said, now that shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her, to uncover her nakedness beside the other in her lifetime. Now, this is one that some would say, well, you're not supposed to take two sisters. Well, understand it does. Let me say why I think that this needs to be examined further by a lot of people. The first reason is because it says to vex her. Okay, as if you're taking. Let's see an example here. This should show you something here. This 1 Samuel chapter 1. Because it makes that stipulation to vex her. What if it's not vexing? I've literally seen I've seen this amongst Europeans, and I've seen this amongst Africans, actually. Sisters that I've seen this in a few cases that I've seen, and in two of the cases you had triplets and that wanted to marry the same man, and then in one case, Europeans, they were twins. But now let's pick it up at I'm gonna pick it up at 1 Samuel 1 and verse 6. It says, because this is talking about Elkanah, who was Samuel, the prophet's father. He had two wives. He had Peninnah and he had Hannah. and Hannah had no children. And notice what it says here. It says, and in verse 5, it said, but unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. And her adversary also provoked her sore for to make her fret. Her adversary. So, like, it's not that I'm not saying they were sisters. I'm not reading that because of that. I'm reading it because of the dynamics of the situation. It's like if somebody's, so it's like one becomes an adversary, and that could happen between women if a man takes multiple women as wives. That simply could happen without them being sisters. But it says here specifically in verse 18 of Leviticus 18, it says, neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her. So the stipulation of vex her is why I say we need to look at that further. That's one reason. The second reason is here, Ezekiel, the 23rd chapter. And we understand that Leah and Rachel, who were at odds with each other, but that wasn't obviously Jacob's intent. Ezekiel, the 23rd chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse 1. Now, I'm going to read this here because this is the Lord talking about his people, and we understand that that is a marriage. But I want us to pay close attention to how this is framed, because one thing the Lord is not going to do, he's not going to speak about himself in sinful terms because he cannot sin. Right? That's a side note. That's how you know polygyny is not sin, because he describes himself basically as a bridegroom with 10 brides. You understand? That's in addition to it never being condemned in the Bible. That, again, we need to look at culture, and we can't impose our own Western culture upon the book. But now Ezekiel 23 and verse 1 says, the word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. So if you're two women and they both had the same mother, what are they? They're sisters. Now pay attention to what it said here. It said, and they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed, and there they bruised the teats of their virginity. So they dealt in harlotry. This is talking about spiritually, right? Spiritual harlotry, being unfaithful. But notice what it says here in verse 4, because it's going to tell you the names of these sisters. It says, and the names of them were Aholah, the elder, and Aholibah, her sister, and they were mine. So they were his possession, and they bear sons and daughters. Now he's going to tell you their names. Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah, and Jerusalem Aholibah. So wait a minute. He's talking about the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. He likens them to two sisters that he took as his wives. He said, and they were mine. And they went out and played the whore against their husband. So what is that telling you? The Lord is here. He's likening himself to one who has taken two wives, but these wives are sisters. If this was sin, the Lord would not. This would not be written in this way. It wouldn't. He wouldn't liken himself to something or someone that is sinning. You understand? That's why I said Leviticus 18 and 18. People need to maybe reconsider, because on the surface you say, okay, is this talking about sisters? You can't be with two sisters, but as far as wives, making them wives. But I think that's something that needs to be looked at more closely by people. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we at the Household of Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at we live stream on YouTube. Forgive me. We also have our Stafford, Virginia congregation that meets every Sabbath at 153 Garrisonville Road, Stafford, Virginia. That's at the Red Roof Inn at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you were edified.